Hey everyone, Ivo once again, Rainbow McLean for life. I am back and I want to welcome everyone back to my new movie review. And I know it's been 2 weeks since I actually did a movie review, or 3 weeks. But yeah, I was so busy with work, and I was really exhausted and busy. I work whole week, so I couldn't do it. But I decided to do another review because today I do have free time. So I want to talk about another film, and of course that's today gonna be U.S. Marshals, which came out in March 6th, 1998. And I wanted to do this review for 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago, but I couldn't do it. I was nervous. I was really on edge. I didn't know how to do what's gonna happen next because we were working on the kitchen so hard, and it's just busy. The work was just really making me busy this week. So that's one of the reasons I've been so busy. But yeah, U.S. Marshals, one of my favorite action movies. And of course, U.S. Marshals this time stars Tommy Lee Jones, Robert Downey Jr., and of course Wesley Snipes. And yes, this is one of my favorite Wesley Snipes films. It's not my favorite of his, it's Blade and right there Demolition Man. Because definitely Blade and Blade 2 and Demolition Man are my top three favorite movies. But I'll say that's my fourth favorite Wesley Snipes film. And of course, my favorite Tommy Lee Jones film, and definitely his best film. Now, U.S. Marshals is underrated. It's an underrated, really good action thriller. It's actually serves as a sequel to The Fugitive, and it's also written at the same time. It's also a spin-off of the character Samuel Gerard, played by Tommy Lee Jones. He previously played in The Fugitive 1993, and the character was actually based by Roy Huggins. Roy Huggins created the character The Fugitive. That was in the 60s, the series, and of course, it was actually a movie. And Andrew Davis that time was director of The Fugitive. And Harrison Ford saw his movie Under Siege, which I love. Under Siege to death. It's my favorite action film. And Harrison Ford saw the Under Siege, so he accepted the role immediately to play Dr. Richard Kimball. But this time in this movie, which serves as a sequel and a spin-off at the same time, it's actually completely different. It's a new fugitive and a new story, and I love that. And I'll definitely say a classic 90s action film, but that's just me because people will disagree. But I would say this movie is underrated. But if you watch the reviews, barely people talk about this film. I mean, no one really cares that much because The Fugitive was a hit, it's a classic, and I don't think that this movie can tops The Fugitive, because if you ask anyone, everyone will say that The Fugitive is definitely the best one. But U.S. Marshals, I'll put above The Fugitive because I watch U.S. Marshals a lot more than The Fugitive. Because you have a great cast with Tommy Lee Jones, Wesley Snipes, and Robert Downey Jr., which all three men are respectful in this movie. And this time was directed by Stuart Baird. Stuart Baird, he was an editor in film industry, and he only directed 3 movies. And the first one was Executive Decision, and people were bitching about it because Steven Seagal was killed off in that movie, or because it was boring, or because it was 2 hours over long. But that was his first film. This was his second film, and I'll say definitely my favorite movie he did. And the third one was Star Trek Nemesis that he directed, which I never saw, but it came out the same year as Wesley Snipes did Blade 2, 2002. It came out the same year. But yeah, the movie of course serves as it's actually once again by Warner Brothers, and actually serves as more a sequel and spin-off. And of course, Tommy Lee Jones took the role in which previously Harrison Ford was actually on the lead in that film, and he was the second lead. This time, Tommy Lee Jones is the lead. the cop who won't stop is back. And yeah, but this time he's chasing down a lot more than a fugitive. And Wesley Snipes and Tommy Jones, this is really good thing. And I'm surprised this movie is rated PG-13. It should be more rated R. But I enjoyed the film. I watched this movie many times, more than The Fugitive. I like The Fugitive, but I'll say with Marshals, I love a lot this movie. But once again, almost the same cast from The Fugitive does return with the new faces. Pajon Pontiliano and Daniel Roebuck, they all return back. They're both back in the film. And also Tom Wood, he's now a retired actor. He was also in this movie. He was Under Siege in The Fugitive, and later he was in this movie, U.S. Marshals. They all return with this time with different actress because Latanya Richardson, she replaced the other actress because she was U.S. Marshal Savannah Cooper. She replaced the other black actress, L. Scott Caldwell, because in that movie she was Deputy U.S. Marshal Erin Poole in The Fugitive. And of course, Latanya Richardson replaced L. Scott Caldwell for her role. And of course, this movie has tons of action, and also the action sequence, the plane crash. The filmmakers were working very hard because they wanted to top the plane crash that has to top the bus crash on the train in The Fugitive. And if you watch The Fugitive, I'm definitely sure that everyone will say it's a classic, because I remember even seeing, a clip in The Sopranos, which was The Fugitive. But I think that U.S. Marshals deserves to be talked more, and definitely one of my favorite films. And yes, I love this film. I mean, I really enjoy U.S. Marshals, 90s action film. Now, this movie was actually filmed after Blade, because Blade was filmed first. It was filmed in February till June, while this movie started filming in June till September 1997. And even though this movie was released first, Blade was actually filmed first, but Blade was released after U.S. Marshals. And back in 1998, Wesley Snipes was still on the top of his game. He was on the top of his career. He was top of his game, and his two best movies came out, in my opinion, U.S. Marshals and Blade. They're actually his top two best movies, in my opinion. And then he did a TV movie, Future Sport. I saw that movie back in 2020, but I don't remember that much about that film. But yes, he did three movies. And back in the 90s, I think the New Jack City really did shot Wesley Snipes into his career, until later in Tax Invention and everything that happened to him, all the bad things. But U.S. Marshals and Blade, were actually his two best films. And I love this movie. I really enjoy U.S. Marshals. I mean, it's a really good one. Now the story, once again, Saint Gerard is once again back in his game, and this time he's chasing a different kind of fugitive. So I actually did a notebook, which I do have all the notebook. Wesley Snipes stars as Mark J. Sheridan, Mark Roberts, or actually Mark Warren. His former CIA Special Activates Division and former Force Recon Marine, and he goes under his name Mark Warren. And there's actually a car crash. Some businessman who he tries to go to business meeting, and he's talking on the phone, and almost causes the crash. And while Mark Warren, played by Wesley Snipes, he actually is actually in this tow truck, and there's a crash, and Mark Warren, aka Mark Roberts, later Mark J. Sheridan, he gets arrested for a murder for 2 murders that happened, I think was last year December, in United Nations parking garage, in which 2 DSS agents, diplomatic security service agents, were killed. 2 agents were killed, and they found the real suspect, Mark Roberts, or Mark J. Sheridan, who was actually CIA special activist division. And of course, when his girlfriend Marie, she went and tries to bail him out, Mark Roberts gets arrested, and he goes on the plane, back to New York, from Chicago back to New York. In meantime, Sam Gerard, played by Tommy Lee Jones, he and his team are actually civilian. They're actually on a stakeout for an armed and very dangerous robber, and of course, they're actually on a very dangerous robber. And of course, that's Michael. He's actually a fugitive with his family, and played by Donald Gibb. And of course, Tommy Lee Jones, he's dressed as a chicken. Stuart Baird, they wanted Tommy Lee Jones to dress as a priest, but the costume designer did not like that at all. So they came out with a chicken, and he's dressed as a chicken. They go into this house that they were staking out, and they go and arrest Donald Gibb, and there's a fight scene. And of course, like I said, Tom Wood as Newman returns, and he grabs the gun and shoots the guy in the shoulder, in the baby basket. The baby, there was actually a shotgun, and and when Tommy Jones handcuffs those 2 women, and he hears a shot, he goes to Newman, and he finds the guy had a shotgun in the baby casket. And of course, Donald Gibb goes and fights those guys. He goes and he fights those guys. And Tommy Lee Jones goes with a shotgun and okay, Michael, crispy, regular or crispy. I like that scene, And Michael goes, and bites the robot, and of course, Tommy Jones goes and hits him, and costs him 27 stitches with a shotgun, hits him in the back, That was because he bit one of his deputies, and I love that scene. And now the gang, they're all celebrating in actually in the bar. And while Mark has been questioned, and he while they actually decide to put him in a plane, they throw him the table, but he steals the glasses, one of those filters, the glasses, he steals it, and they put him on the actually on the plane. And in the meantime, Catherine Walsh, she's actually the boss of Sam Gerard, while he's in a party with his girl, and it was actually played by Kate Nelligan. It was played by Kate Nelligan as U.S. Marshal Catherine Walsh, because Sam Gerard caused that his prisoner 27 stitches, in order to get punishment. She sends him on a plane, which he has to transfer Michael and the rest of the prisoners with a plane. While on the same plane is also Mark J. Roberts, aka Mark J. Sheridan, and another Chinese agent who tries to kill Mark with a pen, with a bullet. And Mark, he growls, and the bullet hits in the actually hits the window, and it blows the plane, and they have a great plane crash. And Stuart Baird actually didn't want an actor; he wanted a real pilot, so he used in the film real pilots. They actually designed the jailbird because they both, the editor, because Stuart Baird checked those regal transport planes. Excuse me, transport planes, and he just did not like that at all. So they actually designed more to look more agile, the plane, and they worked very hard on the plane crash. And the plane, of course, crashed, and Saint Gerard goes and tries to save the rest of the passengers, which he does, but 8 people dies, and he finds, Mark J. Sheridan, who tries to escape, because he goes with that filter of the glasses that he stole, and he goes and uncuffs himself, and he helps. He goes and helps, Saint Gerard to save other passengers, but the plane, sinks down, the water, and Margie Roberts escapes. When they actually checked the plane crash, they found 8 dead. No one misses except one man, and now it's Mark J. Sheridan. And at first they think it's actually Mark Roberts. Now, because they have a fugitive, and like I said, in the back of this title, we are an imitation, a hard target search for a fugitive in an ever-winding perimeter. We will navigate swamps and Manhattan streets, search every house and doghouse. That was just like in The Fugitive. And with all the deputy sheriffs, they have a fugitive, and that's now Mark Roberts. They all knows him, Mark Roberts. Under the DSS, they go and they DSS agents, Special Agent John Royce, played by Robert Downey Jr., and Frank Barrows, DSS agents. They actually want, that's their man. The 2 agents were killed, and they want him fast. So Saint Gerard has to work with Agent John Royce in a search for a fugitive. And I actually enjoy the swamps. Wesley Snipes didn't like working in the swamps because he could not swim, and he didn't like the underwater scenes. But I remember my dad, he was rooting for Wesley Snipes that time, and I still love Wesley Snipes in this movie. And he was actually working for Warner Brothers. Even though he didn't like filming the film, he still did a fantastic job. And I know that Wesley Snipes is a 2nd degree black belt in Hapkido and 5th degree black belt in Karate Shotokan, but Stuart Baird wanted that his bronze, that he doesn't use when his martial arts, so he wanted to do that. And also the action scenes, which are top notch, Stuart Baird, he demanded that they all run faster, they're gonna catch up, and that's what they did. I mean, it was a fantastic film, in my opinion. And of course, the swamp scenes, of course, Mark, he escapes with a truck. He escapes, he took this man, and he's as a hostage. He takes both of them as a hostage. He goes and escapes. He goes in the swamp scenes, and of course, Saint Gerard and Royce, they go and catches him. And of course, with his gun, Wesley Snipes grabs the gun, shoots the guy, shoots Tommy Jones. They say, no, you go home, and he escapes. He calls his girlfriend Maureen, and of course, they all think, that he's actually, guilty, and he tries to escape with Maureen, with his girlfriend. And of course, Sam Gerard, he goes and they go and they start, they go and they start under surveillance, Mark's girlfriend Maureen. And I actually love the scene when they actually go track down, when they actually track down this guy who actually put the gun under the seat, and they found him dead. It was actually a Chinese man, and this is more an espionage film, in which it turns out that that Mark was framed, and was framed by, I think was two guys, was framed in which which one of the guys in CIA, he actually was selling to Chinese their secrets out, they were selling them. And now this Chinese, they want Mark dead because he was a fall guy. And the guy who wants him dead was actually I think I wrote the guy down. The guy who played Chen, Michael Paul played Chen, MSA agent Xian Chen. Michael Paul Chen played Chen. He was actually Chinese agent who wanted to kill him, and I actually love the cemetery scene, and that was definitely my favorite cemetery scene. And like I said, Wesley Snipes didn't like, the disguise, or when he was wearing a wig on himself, or the fake beard and a mustache. He didn't like that at all. He didn't have a good experience. But I like the cemetery scenes, and like Chen goes with a sniper rifle, starts shooting on Wesley Snipes, and Tommy Jones goes with his Glock. And he starts, with his gun, starts shooting. He goes and he starts, shooting on the guys. He goes, shoots, and Wesley Snipes grabs his Beretta and goes, fires on Chen. Chen goes, fires at him. Tommy Jones, who really runs and jumps, front of the bullets, which I love that, dodges the bullets, which is awesome. And of course, Daniel Roebuck and of course, Nathaniel Richardson goes and arrests Chen. And while Wesley Snipes goes on a run, he actually goes on a run with a car and hits right in Joe Napolitano and of course Robert Downey Jr. He hits them and he tries to escape, on the track with Maury, but Maury he can't lift her, so he escapes. He says, run. So Maurice now arrested, and Mark runs in front. John Royce and Newman, of course, and of course, Saint Gerard. And of course, they actually search were searching all the hotels, and they found, Marjorie Sheridan, who uses the apartment. And of course, while Marco is on the run, he actually goes goes in those apartments. And I forgot to mention the scene in which Catherine goes, to DSS, because they found out that the Mark Warren, Mark Roberts, is actually one of their agents. And Catherine goes to DSS and she's all pissed. She's, not all the whole shit you give us. And Robert Jones is like smiling. I love that scene. And then we found out that Marjorie Sheridan is actually a former CIA agent and a former recon Marine, and who somehow robbed himself and killed two agents, and his and of course he's a special activist division and former force recon Marine. And of course Saint Gerard says when they ask him, they ask now the US Marshal what's gonna do, he says catching him. And in that time, when Marcus goes in this retired home and he breaks in it, the lock, and he escapes. And there's a struggle between Robert Downey Jr. and of course Wesley Snipes. And Robert Downey Jr. tries to kill him. In that time, Noah Newman, played by Tom Wood, shows up. And this is the second time Tom Wood gets shot, by John Royce. And when Tommy Jones comes too late, it turns out that Wesley Snipes killed Noah, but he didn't. And there's actually this scene when Wesley Snipes, he's on the roof and he goes and jumps, he jumps off the roof with a cable. And I actually wrote down He goes and jumps, um, um, was actually a 7 foot long reinforced cable. And of course, when Sheridan jumps from building onto Skytrain, that stunt required more precision and timing because they actually timed. It was of course a stuntman that actually jumped with a 70-foot reinforced cable, onto from the building onto Skytrain, which is awesome, fantastic, real stunt scene. And it was a real long reinforced cable which they actually had to film really hard, and they actually put a few cameras to take the shot in one scene, and that was of course that was actually the stuntman Clay Donahue Fontenot who actually did that. He performed that stunt scene in the movie 70-foot long reinforced cable, which you can see on this Blu-ray cover, when he jumped, from the building on the Skytrain. And that scene was the best one. I mean, I actually prefer this scene over the waterfall jump scene with Harrison Ford in The Fugitive. I prefer this scene because this was a real scene and was really hard scene. And I think that the stuntman he broke his arms like that. But that was real. It actually, it was actually, required more precision and timing, when they did that. They actually required more precision and timing when they actually did that with reinforced cable that he jumps, That's actually, that scene is also in the trailer when Tommy Lee Jones tries to catch him. And because now Newman is dead, and of course Sam Gerard, he wants, he wants to catch his friend's killer, because Newman gets killed and shot and killed. And also there is another scene in which they actually filmed two scenes. That one of the scenes was in which I think the one scene was in which Robert Downey Jr. shots Tom Wood, and the other scene was in which he shoots him or he misses him. I didn't write down the note, but I redid it. But they actually put that, they edited that scene in which Robert Downey Jr. shoots him, and of course Newman gets killed. So now there's actually a cargo ship in which Mark goes on a cargo ship, and of course Saint Gerard finds that cargo ship. He goes on a board, and there's actually a scene in which in the cargo, Mark and Mark and Gerard are fighting each other. They landed on that sand, the actual boat landed in the cargo sand. And we all know that Wesley Snipes could kick Tommy Jones' ass because he would use his martial arts. Just Stuart Bear demanded that he brawls, not uses his martial arts techniques. So that was kind of really sad. I wish that Wesley Snipes could show the things that he can do, like he did in Blade. That's kind of really sad. But yeah, they actually brawl, and in the end, Mark grabs the gun, points it, but he doesn't want to shoot him. He wants to put the gun down, and the time he gets shot right in the shoulder, and he gets shot in the shoulder, and of course, Robert Downey Jr. keeps shooting with the gun, but he misses both of them. Perhaps he tried to shoot both of them. But yeah, so back in the hospital, it turns out that, because I forgot to mention, the actor who played Frank Barrows, who actually framed Mark, was also killed, by Chen. He was killed for treason. He was killed. And of course, it turns out that John Rice actually set John Rice and Frank Barrows, they both set up Mark because he was a fall guy. They were selling, top secret documents, to the Chinese in order to get the money. And John Rice tries to kill him. In that time, Saint Gerard finds him and ask him why she shoot that boy, because he find out, and and of course, Tommy Jones gives him actually an empty an empty magazine, and of course that time John Rice grabs another gun, tries to shoot Tommy Jones. Tommy Jones goes with his Glock, shoots him right here in the neck. I think the bullet hits right Tommy Jones in the neck or the chest. And I love when Wesley Snipes screams, "You run!" and he shoots it. I love that scene, badass scene. And of course, Tommy Jones aims the gun and says, "Are you gonna run again?" He says, "No, I'm right now. I'm gonna back to bed." And by the finale, Wesley Snipes is now he's now cleared all the accusations, and and of course he goes with Marie, with his girlfriend, to live a peaceful life. And Tommy Jones and all his men, they actually go now celebrate in memory of their best friend, the partner, their partner Noah Newman. But the movie ends. Now the music score was by Jerry Goldsmith, who did the music score for Rambo films, and yeah, it was just awesome. It actually was just awesome scene, in my opinion. A great music score. Now the cast. Wesley Snipes did perfect as Mark J. Sheridan, the fugitive who tried to hide, when he killed. Actually, those two men that he killed were actually in self-defense. It wasn't he was framed. He killed them, but he killed them in self-defense. They tried to kill him, and they framed him to murders. He did a perfect job. And Tommy Jones, his best film. This is my favorite movie that he did with Under Siege. That's my favorite movie he did for Warner Brothers. I love Tommy Lee Jones, huge fan of him. And Sam Jurad was actually the role that was right in his skin. No one could play him as the character as Tommy Lee Jones. So that was awesome. It's hard to believe this movie is PG-13. Robert Downey Jr. This movie. He said that's actually probably one of the worst action movies of all time. I disagree. I think this movie is better than The Judge. Robert Downey Jr. I think The Judge sucked. I thought it was boring, lame drama film. Nothing happened in that movie. I thought this movie is better than The Judge. Robert Downey Jr. And one of the reasons was Robert Downey Jr. was on coke and on drugs, and he was very late. The cast had to wait for him for 2 hours because the guy was very late. He was very late, and that's one of the reasons this is this film. His drugs addiction were the problem for this film. For his been constantly late on the set of the film. But I thought that the rest of the cast did fine job. I'm glad Robert Downey Jr. was shot and killed the second time in this movie. Thank God. Didn't care about his character anyway. Johnny Pontoliano did a fantastic job as Cosmo Renfro from The Fugitive, and from Bad Boys he did a great job as Deputy U.S. Marshal. Latanya Richardson as Deputy U.S. Marshal. Savannah Cooper did a great job. Better than Ellen Caldwell as Marshal Erin Poole, because she was actually was Savannah Cooper. Dana Roebuck from Matlock and from River's Edge and other films as Deputy U.S. Marshal. Bobby Biggs did a great job. And Kate Nelligan, she was really likable as U.S. Marshal Catherine Walsh. The rest of the cast did Rick Snyder, who did DSS, Special Agent Frank Barros did a good job. The rest of the cast did a great job. Now, Irene Jacob, she was a French actress. She was successful in a movie, but she was actually a French actress, and of course, the director Stuart Baird he was looking for some other girl. He wanted an actress that Marie would be likable, so that audience would actually sympathize with Mark. And Irene Jacobs, she actually was cast in the film, and Hollywood was looking for her. And because she made a movie that was a successful, I think it was a French movie she did, and it was a successful, but she didn't want to do. She actually declined all the roles until they asked her if she would do this film U.S. Marshals, and she accepted the role immediately. When they actually later asked her why she did it, was because she wanted to be an action film. She wanted to do an action film. And I thought that Irene Jacob as Marie Benoist did a good job. She did a great job, in my opinion. Director Stuart Baird did a great job. The action scenes, when the action sequence when the plane crashed, well, it was actually realistic. It was a real stunts scenes. Or when Wesley Snipes, Mark jumps, from the building on the sky train. That's my favorite scene. Yes, this is the best scene. And like I said, I wrote it down. It was actually 7-foot long Grand Force cable. That was definitely my favorite scene. From the building sky train. That was the best scene ever. Now, the budget for this movie, like I said, it was released March 6th. Budget for this movie cost $60 million, but made worldwide $102 million. In opening weekend, US, Canada, $16 million. And that's kind of very impressive. Donald Gibb, also another favorite scene was when Tommy Lee Jones was dressed as in the chicken, and he goes in the house to make a raid, and Donald Gibb is in this film. Okay, Michael, regular or crispy, or crispy, goes and punches him. I like that scene. I love the movie. Now, I saw this movie on VHS tape back in 1999. Was when this movie was released in 1998. I actually saw in the summer. I saw a VHS tape, which I actually took Blade at that time, and this movie I actually rented it, and I rented Bloodsport 2. I wanted to see all those 90s movies, and I saw this movie on VHS tape. I have a Blu-ray, but I saw this movie back on VHS tape in 1999. I remember that summer. It was a blessed summer. It was awesome summer, and I'm still grateful to my mom that she gave me the money so I could rent this film. Which now I bought it myself on Blu-ray, but yeah, I really enjoyed that movie. Now, a few facts. That cemetery scene, like I said, when Wesley Snipes, the actors against the work in this film, when Wesley Snipes jumps from the building on the sky train, that's my favorite scene. The chicken scene, the raid scene with the chicken, that's my second favorite scene. And of course, the cemetery scene was actually New York City, but actually was filmed in Bohemian Cemetery in Chicago. Yes, it was actually Bohemian Cemetery was filmed in Chicago, and that's my third favorite scene. They also used a 727 airplane jet, which was awesome. I forgot to mention, Robert Downey Jr. also worked with government agents to prepare for his role as Royce. The film shots of the plane in water. Filmmakers entered a 40,000 pound plane into the Ohio River. So that was impressive. And the plane could be flooded with water on cue, and was used Boeing 27, and the director used the real pilots. But yeah, U.S. Marshals, I enjoyed this film. Underrated, one of my favorite action films. A real good underrated action film. I love this movie to death. But that's my review on U.S. Marshals, 1998. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon for more reviews. Stay tuned. I'm out. Peace. Take care.